Hey everyone, Jason here, digital marketing consultant, and in this lead generation guide, you're going to learn about the 7 best lead magnets for not only building goodwill for people who just entered their name and email to join your email list, but also prime them for an actual sale because not all lead magnets are created equal. So timestamp table of contents in the description along with some other helpful links to building out your email sequence and landing page along with some softwares you can use to make this process an absolute breeze once you collect that email. But here, we're just gonna focus on these 7 different lead magnet ideas. The best way to think about a lead magnet is not even an 80-20, but a 90-10 power-packed piece of value that you are offering to your ideal prospects, customers, or audience members in exchange for their contact information. Because after all, when you put together what's something called a landing page where you're going to be collecting that contact information, you need to give people a reason to enter their name and email on there. Growing an email list by simply saying, hey, why don't you just sign up for my newsletter and every once in a while I'll try to sell you something, probably isn't gonna work really well. And after all, building an email list is one of the best ways to grow your digital business. So these are really going to be helpful in accelerating that process. So the very first lead magnet we have is going to be the audit. And your ideal customer is asking, how bad is it? That is, they're struggling with a problem, they're struggling with something, they want to know, okay, but how bad is this problem really? And so the job of your audit is to make the problem look as big as possible. Now I know that might seem counterintuitive, like, wait, what? That kind of a jerk move. They enter their name and email, then they find out it's 10 times worse than they thought it is. So you're not going to lie in your audit, but what you're doing in your audit is it's a simple checklist where they're going to essentially go through a self-diagnostic where they can come to the conclusion that, oh my gosh, this is actually a really important thing that I need to solve. And the reason you want to do that with an audit is that it sets you up for whatever your product or service is down the road. Because if you have an audit and it just totally downplays whatever the problem is, well then they're probably not going to want to do business with you because you just said it's not that big of a deal, right? So we do want to make sure that the audit is in and of itself valuable. It's actually able to help them fix a couple things on their own, but also shows that, hey, you probably need some professional help or this product or service in order to really fix the problem, or the audit will reveal another big problem. So here's a quick example of what an audit could look like. This is an example from one of ours where it's a simple checklist that walks someone through their Google Analytics account, showing them all of the switches and buttons that should be turned on or off, or showing them how their traffic isn't actually being tracked like they thought it was. And so this was setting up one of our analytics services. And so the whole goal was to help them solve a quick couple of problems inside their analytics account and then point to some bigger, more complex things that might be resulting in lost tracking, which would, of course, also mean lost sales opportunities, which is kind of a big deal for business owners of the size that we were going after. So the next type, number 2, is going to be a case study. And here you're answering the question in your ideal customer or prospect's mind of, have other people in my situation been able to achieve what I want to achieve? And that's all a case study is. It's simply showing how someone in their situation, whether that's you, whether that was a previous client, or you're just pointing to someone else that you don't know and you're just using them for a case study, as long as the story's real, that's okay, and you don't fake like you helped the other person, right? So you're just showing a story of how they were able to achieve the result that your ideal customer wants, and inside of that story, you also include actionable insights on what they can do to achieve the same result. So it's not just, hey, you know, Tony over there, he used to be 100 pounds and now he's 50 pounds because he went to the gym every day. Like, okay, great, but like, what was his workout? What did he do with his sleep regimen? Like, what did he do for eating? So adding those extra tidbits of information and then also adding some misconceptions along the way where, you know what, he was struggling because he believed this, and then when he changed his mindset, he was able to achieve this great result, whatever that result is. I know that's a facetious example, but whatever situation your ideal customer is in, whether it's trying to lose weight, whether it's trying to start a podcast or build a business or whatever they're trying to do, that you meet them where they are and you show a case study, you show an example to inspire them, to show them you can do this. Other people like you have done this and here's how they did it. This is very similar to another one that we'll get to a little bit later, but it's more story focused, and make sure you just have actionable things inside of that story that people can act upon. So as a quick example here, this is from another marketer, Eric Sue, where he's offering a case study of how he was able to get really big clients. So not only is he just doing a little bragging here and saying, hey, check out all these awesome clients that I got to work with, but he's also saying, I'm going to show you how I was able to do it and how my situation actually isn't that much different than where you are right now. So it's meeting his ideal customer where they are, showing this awesome result that they could get, and then bridging that gap inside of his lead magnet. This next one on our list, number 3, is going to be another PDF style lead magnet, and that is going to be a resource list. So here you're answering the question in your ideal prospects or customers' head of, okay, but what do you recommend specifically? You being the expert, the freelancer, the business owner, or the influencer. Because let's just go with the example of software, right? When it comes to creating videos like this one, there are tons of different editing softwares. There's tons of different lighting and camera equipment. And so sometimes people just want to know what you specifically are using. Now, it doesn't have to be you making videos. It could be the software you use in your marketing. It could be the specific supplements or protein powders that you use for working out. Whatever it may be, there are a lot of people out there who want to know what you specifically use. And so you can create a resource list of the software, the products, and the services that you've personally used and you personally recommend. And this is incredibly valuable because it saves your ideal prospects and customers all that trial and error, because they don't want to go through testing different software. They don't want to go through testing different products. They just want you to give them the answer. Just tell me which one to buy that's worked for you so I can move on with my life. Your resource list could also be a swipe file. A lot of things marketers like to do is collect a bunch of landing pages, sales pages, and ads that they really liked. So if you're a marketer or if you're a designer and you have a bunch of different things that you look to for inspiration, whether it's a website, whether it's making logos, making a painting, or just doing general social media marketing, and you can compile all of those together and offer them as a lead magnet. Now, number 4 on our list is going to be a report. And this is where your ideal customer prospect is looking at a daunting task and saying, wow, that's a lot of research. So what did you get, right? So what you're doing here is you're going to be taking a bunch of data and information and distilling it down into a nice 80-20 package that is very easy and digestible to understand. The best way to illustrate what a report could be is this example from Motley Fool, where for the low price of just your email, you can get their latest stock picks. So instead of their ideal customers or prospects having to go through the hours of research it would take to figure out what stocks to buy now, they're just going to do all that research and give it to them on a silver platter. So if you can take a bunch of research and just searching and distill it down into a quick report that someone can easily read, as long as it's saving them a bunch of time in their own research, it's going to be a valuable enough offer to make as a lead magnet. Now, this next one is pretty straightforward and standard, but it's very easy for it to become way more than it needs to be. And that is a guide. And that's simply answering the question, okay, but how do I do it? That's what your ideal customer prospect is asking. And so what you want to identify is a problem that they have in a situation that they're in. So it's a little different than a case study in which you're going to be a lot more hands-on and you're not really going to have a story of success here. So identify point A, which is where they are now, and then identify point B, which is where they want to be, and then just create a step-by-step guide getting them from point A to point B. I mean, the simplest example is making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, right? How do you make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich? Well, point A could be going to the grocery store, it could be assuming that they already have it, so you kind of have to make that decision, right? I'm being a little silly with my example here, but let's just say they already have the stuff, right? And then you'd go through how to actually make the sandwich, which would be point B. And so that's what you're doing with a guide. You're simply walking them step by step through a process in order to get them the result that they're looking for. Now, it's very important that this is an 80-20, if not 90-10 process. So you're not going to want to have a lead magnet that says, all right, this is how you're going to lose, 50 pounds over the next 30 days, right? Like that's way too big for a lead magnet offer. So what you want to do is identify something that someone would do to get that big result and kind of distill it down. So here's how to change your meal plan, or here's how to, change your workout, or whatever it might be. So something that's small that someone can easily achieve within a week's time. This needs to be fast because we need to prime them for whatever your paid offer is. Because if it takes them 3 months to go through your lead magnet, that means you're waiting 3 months to make your offer for your paid product or service, right? We need to get them a quick win. We need to get them a quick result. So the guide needs to be able to deliver a result very, very quickly. So I have a couple examples here. The first one is one from one of our other tutorials, which is how to properly set up Google Tag Manager. So this is just a quick guide that goes through the basics of Google Tag Manager, and someone going through the guide and playing with Google Tag Manager can be done within 3 to 4 hours, just depending on how tech savvy they are, right? And so it's not something that's super long or super arduous. Well, there is a little bit of coding in there, so we try to keep it as simple as possible, but it's just a simple guide saying, hey, you want this on your site? This is how you do it. And 3 or 4 hours later, our ideal customers or prospects have gone through the guide and they're good to go. Now, another thing you can do here is you can create the complete guide to or the ultimate guide to. And this is where you're going to take a lot of your other content. If you already have content, obviously if you don't, then this isn't going to matter, right? But if you have other content, whether it's video, podcast, written, or maybe even if it's part of your product or service, where you take a bunch of other information and you put it into one massive guide. Now, I generally don't recommend doing this simply because those big how-to guides are going to take a long time for people to go through, and it can actually start messing with your sales process. But if you don't have a sales process right now, or you're not really concerned about that, then you can create an ultimate guide too. The final example here is it doesn't necessarily have to be in PDF form. It can be in video form as well. So this is from one of our funnels where it's an hour-long YouTube growth training. And so instead of creating a guide like we did with Google Tag Manager, we just offer it as a growth training. Now, this next one is going to be template. And this is where your ideal customer or prospect is saying, hey, can you just do this for me or get to as close as doing this for me as you can? And so this is creating something like a worksheet or giving them an actual copy of something that you've already done. So for example, with email marketing, we would give people some email scripts, or maybe you have some media assets that you've created or you've already collected, like a stock library of photos or videos that you can share, as well as just creating a worksheet. So all they have to do is go through and fill in the blank. Now, if you want to learn how to actually create not only a great looking PDF, but also a PDF where your ideal prospects or customers can actually edit it, check out this video in the cards and the description that will walk you through how to add that cool little functionality using Canva and another free tool. Now, our example here is one of our blueprints where it's actually just a basic Google Doc, but it helps people go through all of the steps they need to go through for actually putting together their funnel. So it includes some things like some copywriting scripts, some email templates, along with some actual guides where they can just fill in the blanks for staying organized as they put together their funnel. And a lot of people find value in it. And I'm just using this as an example because all it is from a technical aspect is a Google Doc. And so it doesn't have to be really complicated. People care about the information and what they're going to be able to do as a result of getting the template, guide, audit, case study, or PDF, not necessarily how fancy the software is that's delivering it. Now, speaking of software, our last one is going to be a tool. And so this is where your ideal customer or prospect wants help getting something done. And so this works really, really well if you're going to put together something like a calendar, tracker, some sort of calculator, or maybe even a full-blown web page, depending upon your niche or industry. And here you're essentially giving them some sort of calculator or something inside of Excel. We like to use Google Sheets, and don't worry, you don't have to be an Excel nerd like I am to get this to work. You can actually find people on Fiverr who can put together calendars, trackers, and calculators for you. And you can just put this in a Google Sheet, and then people can go through it themselves, do their own calculations, do their own tracking and planning. And so our example here is from one of my old companies where we were helping people evaluate whether or not they should be buying a particular stock. And all it was a spreadsheet where they could just enter a ticker symbol of a stock, and then the spreadsheet would do all of the calculations we would do and then give our recommendations based upon the current stock's price and the company's financials. And so that does it for these 7 different types of ideas. Again, there's a link in the cards and the description to a video that will help you actually put together a PDF along with a playlist that goes through using a free tool called Canva to actually put together your lead magnet. So go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe for more deep dive lead generation tutorials just like this one. And until the next, keep building the business you love.